Welcome back, everyone. I know you saw the title of this video and thought, how on earth could you think that you have identified one of the most ridiculous and repugnant legal rulings in Islam when there are so many choices? Well, you can decide for yourself at the end of this video if this fits in, let's say, the top 5 or so. Here's a little bit of background. We see lots of bad beliefs and practices in Muslim countries, and it turns out that those things are driven by the texts of the religion themselves: Quran, Hadith, history of interpretation, and so forth. So let me give you an example. We've talked a lot about breastfeeding, embryology, and related topics on this channel, and also talked about some really absurd things that are happening in Muslim countries, and actually some very harmful things that happen as well because of what Muhammad said and believed about these topics, the so-called science in the Hadith. It's completely ridiculous, and rather than just reject these things, Muslims hold on to them and practice them. And so there's one layer of absurdity that is the modern practice on top of another layer of absurdity, and that would be the religious text itself: Hadith, Quran, whatever it is. In this video, we're going to talk about something very similar in that we see really harmful and absurd things happening in Muslim cultures. And it turns out that once again, those things are driven by the texts of the religion themselves. I'll put a link to this article in the description box from wng.org called "Where Adoption is Illegal. Because Islam Forbids Adoption, a judge in Egypt recently ordered that a 4-year-old boy be taken from his Coptic Christian adoptive family, placing him in an orphanage and changing his Christian name into a Muslim one." Here's some background to the story. This family couldn't have their own biological children in their 29 years of marriage. In 2018, they found an abandoned baby inside a Coptic church in Cairo. The baby was just a few days old and was likely abandoned because he was conceived out of wedlock. Things went smoothly for 4 years as the baby found a home, and the parents rejoiced in the gift sent their way from heaven, until one of the relatives intervened, fearing that the family's inheritance would go to the new child and deprive others from it. Egyptian authorities then took the child, gave him a good old Muslim name, and put him in an orphanage. The parents, of course, were adopted parents, and that's the crime of adoption, of course, forbidden by Sharia law. But let's not be too quick to pass judgment. There has to be some rational basis for this law. There has to be some hikmah. So let's read the background of this law and get some hikmah together. In the early life of Muhammad, adoption was allowed, evidenced by the fact that Muhammad himself had an adopted son named Zayd, who married a beautiful woman named Zainab. However, a sketchy situation occurred. I can be a little more blunt. This sketchy situation is a source of lasting embarrassment for Muslims. At this point, I know what's happening on the viewer side of the channel. Non-Muslims know this story, but they're watching it anyway because it's so great, and Muslims have commented and clicked off the video long before now. In a meeting with Zainab at her house, again, this woman is the wife of Muhammad's adopted son, Muhammad began to have feelings for her, and Allah knew his heart. I think heart in this context means the deepest sexual desires of men, of which Allah is always very well aware and very willing to satisfy. Since Muhammad could marry his adopted son's wife, Allah was given 2 choices. He could remove the sexual frustration that Muhammad was feeling, or he could abolish adoption. Which one do you think he chose? Allah had to revoke the adoption, instruct Zayd to divorce her, and forbid adopting children henceforth. This opened the way for Muhammad to marry Zainab, and we are told that she used to boast to the other wives of the Prophet and say, "Allah married me to him from above the heavens." When Muhammad married Zainab, the other wives were skeptical and uncomfortable. One of them complained to him, "It seems to me that your Lord hastens to satisfy your desires." And even the atheists watching this video are saying amen to that. So is this prohibition on adoption based on something rational? No. Once again, it's based on Muhammad's precedent, which drives Islamic law. Muslim jurists who form laws cannot allow what Allah forbade, and this has been going on for 14 centuries. Now check out the link in the description box and you'll see that fortunately, ironically, it was politics that got involved and overturned Sharia law in this case and resulted in the child being returned to his parents, though of course we can't call them his parents in any sense of the word, because that would violate Sharia law. And this prohibition on adoption brought about to satisfy the lust of Muhammad. Always, always, always have to satisfy the lust of Muhammad and Muslim men. Just remember that. It's like the first principle of Islamic law. So what do you think? Is this one of the most repugnant and ridiculous legal rulings in Islamic law, or can you think of some more? Let me know in the comments section. You know, we treated this topic and this backstory with a little bit of scorn and humor and sarcasm and so forth, because that's what it deserves. But in reality, what happened to this child is very tragic, and for the child and for the parents and the family, no doubt traumatic. And this kind of thing happens all over Muslim lands because of oppressive Sharia law. And when these things happen, we need pressure to change them. These things need to be brought to light and exposed. So if you know any other examples of these sorts of things happening, let me know in the comments section, and I will surely bring some attention to them with all of the scorn that Sharia law deserves. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.